Hello, I hope this video finds you well. I'd like to introduce myself here, so... Who am I? What is this? Well, I am 20 years old. I would have graduated in high school with the class of 2019. I'm someone who's been watching the current socio-political situation since I was old enough to understand that politics is the sort of war of ideas and ideals. The first political event I was truly cognizant of was Occupy Wall Street back in its heyday, watching all the news on the TV as my grandparents followed the story. It was definitely out of the purview of my 10-year-old brain, but I sympathized with the protesters on some level. I rooted for them to end the corruption. I mean, whatever that thing was, it sounded bad. My perpetually struggling family also shared this idea. I remember it being a great uniting thing for struggling Americans. Maybe the world stood a chance at being fixed. Then it fell apart. I never heard about it again. I'll leave that there. I started using internet around the time of Gamergate, which is the first socio-political event that I kind of understood at the age of 13. I found it odd that grown people were complaining so much about online harassment. I was kind of offended that they, as adults, were reacting to words on a screen from complete strangers more extremely than I ever did against the putting down and mistreatment I faced in school and at times at home. I was worried about how hateful everything and everybody seemed. I couldn't quite understand how it was possible to hate anything in this esoteric kind of way. I'm not a Christian, but this was probably the single most important thing church taught me. It taught me to not hate people, if for no other reason than to spite those who may feel hate towards me. Turning the other cheek is a small act of defiance, after all. Anyway, as for the hatred that was aimed at me by classmates, I was simply told that we were all kids. It was just school. Ignore them. Focus on schoolwork. Go to college. Get a dream job. Bam! I'm living the American dream my parents and grandparents fought for so hard, yet couldn't achieve. Sometimes I blamed myself for that lack of achievement, thinking, oh, if only I wasn't born, they'd be so much better off. Probably happier, not being dragged down by some bratty little kid demanding attention, food, time, stealing their life force, generally being a burden. This thought started a decline in my mental health, enthusiasm for life, will to succeed, or even interact with other human beings. I slept through the rest of school and only maintained good enough grades to graduate. I had checked out. My grandparents started fighting more and more often, and I had to be the mediator to try and hold the family together, because if I didn't have them, I had absolutely nothing. To me, that's something a poor, rural southern child doesn't exactly have a chance of coming back from. While this was happening, the rise of identity politics in the online space frustrated me. It made me feel worse as I saw my identity constantly attacked. The internet was my escape from a reality I hated living. And I felt like that same unfair treatment followed me onto the internet. Everything about me was a problem. Where I'm from, who I was as a lonely teenager during a notorious period of school tragedies in the news. The fact I have pale skin, and when I started feeling things for my best and only friend at the time, that as well. As if somehow, by virtue of existing in my circumstance, I was hurting or disadvantaging others, just as I had already felt hurt and, disadvantaged. As 2014 turned into 2015, 2016, and onwards, it seemed that this was getting worse, and so did my mental health. One morning, I woke up, got ready for school, and waited outside for my bus. The bus came by and picked me up, but something was off. There were no students in it. It was empty. There were only several police officers. They stepped off the bus, escorted me in, and sat me down. The ride was quiet. I was confused. When we eventually arrived at the school, it was crawling with police officers. I was escorted to the school's office meeting room, and my backpack was checked. I I had been accused of intending to commit grievous acts of violence against my classmates, by my classmates. And, well, there I was. After that, I completely dissociated from my own life. The only thing that kept me around was a small group of online friends I had found playing video games, and I am incredibly happy to find them, to have them. My family situation further deteriorated to the point, starting in about 2015, I would spend entire nights stepping in with these arguments, trying to coach them along and get them to understand each other. This continued for years, until November 2018, when, at the age of 17, I couldn't hold it up anymore. After a prolonged series of events I'd rather not talk about here right now, I had to leave my home. One of my online friends became my roommate. He extended a helping hand, thankfully. Me, having nowhere else to go, I got a bus ticket and traveled across the country to make my new home way up in the mountains. I've been working as hard as I can to scrape by and build something up, something I could call mine, ever since. I've spent the past few years working at factories, landfills, the ocean, retail, you name it. Despite all this work, I've been able to save very little. No amount of frugality has helped me. Everything costs more. Barriers to entry for everything are getting higher and higher, to the point where it seems that, I don't know, anyone under the age of 30 has a very little chance of getting any, what you may consider a conventional skilled job. Is something that isn't just hard labor like what I've been doing, or dead-end service sector work. This channel is dedicated to the discussion about disenfranchised young people today, who are having everything ripped away by powers we can barely understand and feel powerless against. I see a new generation of people being pushed into being working poor, unfairly. People who are only able to secure the bare necessities financially, and even then, not always. We can't afford to be activists. We'll starve if we don't fill in the gaps. Older folks are leaving by quitting the workforce now. Something about that certainly feels deliberate. And that's just my opinion. Don't get too down. After all, we are the future. We still have a chance to shape it and make it better for us and the people of the future. We can always do better. Thank you for your attention. Have a good day.